Hi all and welcome to another week of the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams and tonight's October the 12th. Mixed bag tonight. There is some intel and there's a lot of fun and games going on. Fires in California, Puerto Rico, and some encouraging moves made by certain people in the government. So we'll cover that. But that last song, When the Children Cry, you know, this is what we're doing this for. It's, you know, we are at various ages in our life. Some of us are near an ending to our life, or certainly in the latter part. But it's the children that the legacy is for. You know, we can't put another generation of children through the carnage, violence, greed, haves and have-nots, poverty and famine, wars. The list goes on and on and on. So that song was for the Beatrices, the Erics, and the Paytons of this world, because this is why we do it. You know, when the children cry, we have a choice. Do we leave them to cry and suffer because of our ignorance and stupidity? Because yes, we have been ignorant, and yes, we have been stupid. Is there extenuating circumstances for that? Largely, yeah. But we can't dissolve our own personal responsibility. There's too much of that being going on, whether it be by ET races, governments, cabal, and the general populace, be it awake or the unawakened. We can't just carry on ignoring everything, hoping it goes away and fixes it itself. It doesn't, it hasn't, and we have to take the fight to them, which is what we're doing. And largely that fight has been successful. Some may not see it that way, because things are getting worse in certain aspects of life. But it was warned that things would get worse before they got better. It needs more to stand up. It needs more to accept responsibility for creating a new life and a new way of being. Only we can do that. This show has taught many of you how governments are not coming to save you, ETs are not coming to save you. Only we save us. And all of us will see some benefit, but the biggest benefit will be the children, where they'll grow up in a better world than what we came into. That's something our ancestors failed to do, but a role this generation, or the last two generations, have decided enough is enough, and we're going to take it head on. And we'll hear some of the reasons why during the show. Right, let's get into the usual things surrounding the show. And the email for the show, if you want to put some questions in, or pass some comments, or send some information, it's truth.honor.and.integrity@gmail.com. And the link for the show is www.spreaker.com/user/8955881. And we have an articles website. There's some interesting articles on there. There's some of the documents that are on the Facebook page is also loaded on there, particularly the grounding, centering and shielding. That is a must at this time. I'll explain why shortly, probably in the second hour. So all the archives and certainly the bigger shows, are on thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. You can also listen to it, this current show, live from there as well. We have the Facebook page Truth, Honour and Integrity, and a Facebook social media alternative called MeWe.com. If you send an email to the Truth, Honour and Integrity at gmail.com, we can add you to that site. We have the People's Club donations website to tell you all about the foundation that will eventually come to pass. We've been waiting a while, but there are extenuating circumstances that have been explained many times. So the donations website is thepeoplesclub.org. Right, let's get into the usual. We've got quite an eclectic mix of info tonight. There's a minimal amount of intel due to things that are ongoing, and quite a number of op-ed pieces I need to cover, and a flash from the past to get you to understand how they think of us, and a reminder why we have to fight back. Well, first we'll get into the news, and this is from Ecuador, of all places. And it's another one of those news items that got things that make you go, I've noticed a couple of other sites have been copying that this week, which is good. It spreads the message far and wide. But Ecuador's Supreme Court last Monday ordered the jailing of the Vice President Jorge Glass as he was investigated for allegedly taking bribes from Brazilian construction giant involved in a sprawling regional graft scandal. Judge Miguel Gerardo accepted a request from prosecutors that Glass be detained to guard against any attempt to escape. And until Monday's ruling, Glass had been free but barred from leaving the country. He had repeatedly, as they always do, denied any wrongdoing, and even took to Twitter. See what you've done, Mr. Trump, all the government ministers on Twitter, to denounce the ruling as politically motivated. Still, he said he would respect the ruling, which he called a disgraceful attack built on forged or non-existent evidence. So he is now vowing to exhaust all appeals nationally and internationally to clear his name. But this is not the only one. Right across Latin America, once seemingly untouchable politicians, including the former leaders of Brazil and Peru, have been charged or are under investigation for purportedly taking bribes or illegal campaign contributions from a company called Odebrecht, another nice German name, as part of the construction company's rapid expansion across the region in the past decade. But Glass is the highest ranking official in Ecuador to be investigated for allegedly receiving some $33 million from the construction company. Nice earn of that. In exchange for contracts when he served as the vice president from 2013 to 2017. So the case has been partly built on testimony from the former Odebrecht executives as well as former government officials. So the clean-up that has been mentioned in this show recently, that's a continuation of it. You're going to see a lot more of that type. Here's another one. In Pakistan, anti-corruption body was arrested on Monday. The son-in-law of the ousted Pakistani Premier Nawaz Sharif at Islamabad airport on his return from London. Mohammed Safdar, a a lawmaker married to Sharif's daughter and heir apparent Maryam, was detained after he failed to appear at previous National Accountability Bureau court hearings about corruption allegations stemming from a probe into the Sharaf family wealth. Yet again, like the guy from Ecuador, the Sharafs have denied any wrongdoing and have labelled the corruption proceedings against them as politically motivated. It's obviously a standard line that they all have. Two of the former Premier sons are also due to appear in court before the National Accountability Bureau in Pakistan, along with the finance minister as well, Ishaq Dar. So there's 3 or 4 countries just mentioned already where anti-corruption are now being dealt with. And this is, like I said, it's part of the clean-up going on around the world to then enable the changes to take place. You can't implement new systems, be it finance or anything else, with clowns and rogues still operating. They'll just steal it. It's what they've been doing for thousands of years. Here's another change in the offing. Canadian descendants of the so-called black loyalists who have long lived without any title to the land that they were given centuries ago are now finding that they may get all the land back. So now Nova Scotia is righting that historical injustice, and one lady in particular by the name of Violet Downey and her husband have lived on their land for 50 years. And it's been in her husband's family for much, much longer. The family live in North Preston in Nova Scotia and is one of the oldest and largest black communities in Canada. Now, the land that they lived on may belong to the Downeys, but they don't own it. You know, how did he come up with these rulings? But like many families in the historic black Nova Scotian communities, they don't have a legal title to their land, as that has sometimes been in the land that has been in families for generations. So that means families who live and pay taxes on the land can't legally will it to any descendants. They can't sell it and they can't get a mortgage. So they own it, but they can't sell it, they can't will it, and they can't get a mortgage. Now, this problem dates back to the 1780s, in the dying days of the so-called American Revolution. Black loyalists were former slaves encouraged by the Crown of England to fight with British regiments against American forces. And in exchange, they would get freedom for military service for the Brits. After the war, about 3,000 of them fled to Canada, then British North American, on the promise of freedom and a farm, which they can't own or can't sell. It's terrible, isn't it? So it's been announced that $2.2 million in funding over 2 years to assist 5 communities to get clear title to the land on which they live, help cover the costs and handle the bureaucracy. And the money comes shortly after a UN report on anti-black racism in Canada that urged the province to do more to resolve the issue. So there's another example of small change, which then may lead into other regions. Who knows? One small change can set a ball rolling. It will be a small change that eventually gets the bigger ball rolling, in my opinion. And here's is why change is so difficult when people who are largely ignorant of world history, whether it be in a foreign country or their own, for that matter, and fight for their masters. At least 350,000 people gathered in Barcelona, which is the capital of Catalonia, who fought for independence and voted for independence this week. And the rally, 350,000, was against independence from Spain. 350,000 Spanish people. It boggles the mind. They waved Spanish and Catalan flags and carried banners saying, "Together we are stronger." No, actually, together, separate, would be stronger for the Catalonia people. They want to make their own choices, not live under Spanish royals who have given nothing to the Catalonia region. Because this plays out in the soccer world in Spain. Barcelona, which is the capital of Catalonia, is one of the biggest clubs in the world. Some say the. Others will say it's the other Spanish team, Real Madrid. And yet Real Madrid is funded entirely by the Spanish government. And that, people in Europe are a lot more soccer, or football as we call it over there, oriented than perhaps over here in America. It becomes part of a big part of their life. Well, Barcelona has seen their rivals being funded by the Spanish government, and that upsets an awful lot of people. Now, a lot of the GDP of Spain comes from Catalonia. Big portion of the Spanish GDP. So why shouldn't they spend it on Catalonia rather than funding the likes of Real Madrid and Spanish royals? Now, the Spanish people ought to get rid of the royals and their corrupt governments. And then the people will be stronger together. Anyway, it was the largest such rally in Catalonia amid speculation that the Catalan leaders will declare independence from Spain next week. This was last weekend, so they did declare it, but talks are ongoing. And the Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy has warned that he would not rule out anything within the law to halt Catalonian independence. Really. And this is where the Spanish people really need to start thinking and acting different. Because what happens in one place eventually happens in another. This is why I keep telling people who listen to this show, you cannot keep ignoring what's going on elsewhere and living in your own little bubble world. Eventually, your bubble gets burst. This is what they want to do. So the Spanish people need to support the Catalans. If independence is that people's choice, then they should support the people, not the country. This is where it gets, the waters become very muddy. Spain is another fascist-style country. And they're getting the Spaniards to be all about España. No, let's be all about people. they want independence from Spanish royals that are raping their economy to fund Spain, then you can understand why. Now, similar rallies were also held across Spain on Saturday, and the final results from last week's disputed referendum in the wealthy northeastern region suggested 90% of the 2.3 million people who voted supported independence, and the voter turnout was 43%. I wish them luck. France has stepped in as one part of the system, and the French government has said it will not recognise Catalonia if it declares independence from Spain, and such a move will mean expulsion from the EU. Really? See how they threaten? You got the Spanish PM basically threatening violence if they didn't backtrack on independence, and then you get the French stepping in and saying we will expel you from the EU. This is why all the people of France, all the people of Spain, Britain, you name it, should be supporting the Catalonian people and tell the governments to stick it. And the European Affairs Minister, Nathalie Loiseau, said the crisis following the banned October the 1st referendum had to be resolved through dialogue with Spain. Catalan President Carles Puigdemont, nearly got that right, is expected to address the regional parliament on Tuesday. There's been no sign of a compromise being struck with Madrid, which is the capital, and economic pressure on the pro-independence camp is rising, with 3 more companies expected to discuss moving their offices out of Catalonia on Monday. So no doubt the Spanish royals and the Prime Minister have put pressure on those corporations to make them sink. Nice people. Another example of actions being taken. In Turkey, the police force has suspended more than 9,000 officers over alleged links to the US-based Islamic preacher Fethullah Gulen. Oops. It said the action had been taken on the grounds of national security, and President Erdogan accuses Mr. Gulen of instigating a failed coup against him last July, which was largely on the premise of what came out of Washington and also Virginia. Now, a charge the cleric denies, and earlier authorities detained more than 1,000 people in the latest operation against alleged Gulen supporters. A nationwide sweep was one of the largest such operations carried out in Turkey in recent months. Now, as well as the 1,009 who were detained on Wednesday, arrest warrants were issued for another 3,224 people as part of a police operation against Turkey's 81 provinces. And the Interior Minister, Mr. Soylu, said the raids were targeting a Gulenist network that infiltrated our police force called Secret Imams. So Turkey's cleaning house also. Where are we going next? Let me just check this out. Right, that seems okay. Thought the sound dropped then. Well, this was part of a piece, and it will appeal to all in the alternative media. The author and journalist Max Blumenthal did a piece this week, and I pulled some bits from it that I think's rather interesting and also rather telling. He went on to say, after years of Russia hysteria and North Korea fear-mongering led by the US mainstream media and, listen for it, NATO propaganda. This show's been warning you about NATO and the clowns over there in Norway. Have built support for war amongst Americans, making them ready to fight and die in overseas lands. From 2015 through to this summer, we saw a 20% surge in the number of Americans who would support sending troops to defend South Korea. Really? We also see for the first time in history a majority of Americans willing to send US troops to fight and die for Latvia against Russia. And that is a reflection of their support for NATO. The Washington Post has stated that these numbers represent a kind of failure of Donald Trump's America First policy, stating there was a non-interventionist component that he campaigned on, which, as we all know, had proved rather popular, particularly in places like the Rust Belt, was mentioned by Mr. Blumenthal, which started to shift when the election campaign began. And they reflect a concerted campaign by mainstream media and by the national security state, which has unprecedented access and control over the mainstream media. Interesting. Particularly CNN and MSNBC, to bring the Americans' public views in line with the elite's views of our interventionist bipartisan foreign policy consensus in Washington. So what Mr. Blumenthal is saying is the national security state and the elites control the mainstream media, and certain top news, headline news people, CNN, MSNBC, are brainwashing you, so you follow their directive. So after almost 2 years of non-stop red baiting against Russia, and the fear-mongering over North Korea have done the trick, particularly amongst Democrats, the report found. They've been partly manufactured by NATO propaganda. We heard a lot, especially on CNN, from figures like Jake Tapper, or what is commonly known as Deep State Jake. Remember that name? Who almost every show is pushing regime change in one of the non-compliant states. We've heard a lot about the Zapad, Z-A-P-A-D, West military exercises in Romania, where Russia was said to have amassed 100,000 troops on so-called NATO borders. NATO don't have any borders. They seem to think they do. It turns out that Jens Stoltenberg, who's the head of NATO, nice German name again, was pushing this as a lie, as he was stating 100,000 troops, and there was less than 10,000 troops in the end appeared for the military exercises. Propaganda, and these have been seen and reflected in the attitudes towards the said countries. I thought that was rather interesting. A lot of it, NATO kind of goes hidden in many aspects, but they're the ones pushing the war with Russia, along with some of the clowns in factions 2 and 3 in Langley. So a lot of people have asked on this show various times about cryptocurrencies. Well, Mr. Putin did an article this week and has warned against the rise of cryptocurrencies, saying that they are often issued by anonymous sources and could be used for money laundering and the financing of terrorism. Oops. In a number of countries, cryptocurrencies are becoming or have already become a fully fledged means of payment as well as a means of investment. Cryptocurrencies usage at the same time bears significant risks, and Mr. Putin said he's aware of the Russian central bank's position. Putin warned that the risks include, first of all, opportunities to launder funds acquired through criminal activities, tax evasion, even terrorism financing, as well as the spread of fraud schemes. Again, who does that sound like? The elephant in the room again, isn't it? And the other issue related to the cryptocurrencies is a lack of transparency or any monetary standard. Go figure. Now, the cryptocurrencies are issued by an unlimited number of anonymous sources, and in case of any problems, including system malfunctions or the emerge of currency bubbles, there will be no one liable, Putin warned. They just create money out of thin air, and when it all goes pop, when they've creamed all the top off, no one's accountable. A bit like governments, really, and agencies. Now, top Russian officials have been recently discussing measures to fix the legal limbo surrounding cryptocurrencies, ranging from introducing a regulation of sorts to imposing an outright ban on the token-based electronic currencies. What has the world come to? You know, tokens were for fair rides, weren't they? You know, and casinos. Now it's being used as a world currency. You have to laugh, otherwise you go and unsay anything. Here's another partial takedown. Taiwan Fair Trade Commission said on Wednesday it's going to fine the US chip maker Qualcomm Inc. $23.4 billion for antitrust violations of its chip technology. The Commission said in a Chinese language statement that Qualcomm had maintained and administered a monopoly over the CDMA, the WCDMA and the LTE chip market and refused to license its technology to other industry players. Qualcomm is required to submit a progress report on the matter every 6 months to the Commission on negotiations with related parties. A bit like Microsoft. Steal all the knowledge from IBM and Mr. Gates runs with it at the behest of certain criminal elites. Wasn't his idea. Wasn't his knowledge either. So another sign of the consumer slowdown is Sears announced yesterday they're closing every single store in Canada. Sadly, I don't expect that will be the last either. There's literally no money about. You'll find out why soon. Where are we next? 2 more pieces before a musical break, and then we'll go into some intel and some op-ed pieces. The Puerto Rico Disaster Fund had the debate today and was passed in the House by 353 to a 69 vote, a $36.5 billion disaster aid package. That includes assistance for Puerto Rico's financially strapped government. Now, I think on the one hand, it's rather nice that people are supporting Puerto Rico. But what gets me, and probably everyone else that listens to this show, is why is it always coming out of American taxpayers' pockets? 22 to 25% of the UN is funded by American taxpayers. 80% of NATO is funded by American taxpayers. Puerto Rico, no matter what they say, is really not part of America. They add it in when it's convenient, so they can trample all over the Puerto Rican people. But as it states now, there's 50 states, not 51 states. So why is the American people being asked to fund $36.5 billion? You know, I'm not being cruel here, but I'm just pointing out that too much of our money is going to fund other countries. We have 900 American bases. Do the American people get any benefit from those 900 bases? No, zero. But we're paying for it. We're paying for Israel. We're paying for Syria. We're paying for Afghanistan. And you people in America not wonder why we have nothing left. It's just not right. You know, I have every sympathy with the people of Puerto Rico, and I'm sure they'd understand and it wouldn't take that comment wrong. It's just how they can just magic up these massive amounts of billions for other countries with our taxpayer money, and yet when the American people ask for something like the veterans, there's no money. Same applies in the UK. I'm trying to remember the fund Theresa May came up with this week. Again, there was no money for the nurses, and then suddenly they just produced X number of billions for another country, which we all know doesn't go to the other country. It just gets loaned through other things and funds elites. And this is what bothers me about this $36.5 billion in Puerto Rico. Is it all going to the IRS because they are running short of money because there's not enough people paying? Because despite what the clowns in the Federal Reserve tell you, there's hardly any jobs. Beyond minimum wage anyway. And the final news piece, President Trump's suggestion that NBC should potentially have its broadcast license challenged, as it prompted a wave of condemnation from both sides of the aisle, with many saying that such a move would violate the First Amendment. Yeah, right. But it's okay that NBC, MSNBC, CNN and Fox can just lie through the teeth of the public, spinning agency propaganda, telling you there was only one gunman when there was about 3 or 4. You know, anyone with half a brain, who got ears that listen, that's violating the First Amendment. No, it's not actually. They should all be cancelled. All news media should be have their license cancelled and switched off, and get people to report the real news of what's going on. I'm sure I speak for all on that, because we're all tired of the war propaganda. North Korea's this, they're firing this weapon, yeah. They use the same footage over and over again, and then tell you that they're doing tests again. How do we know? Well, we don't, and they just presume that will follow to what they're telling you. Sadly, too many do. So Mr. Trump lashed out at NBC News on Wednesday after the outlet reported that Trump had suggested increasing the nation's nuclear arms stockpile during a meeting with top cabinet officials. One hopes not. One hopes we see the day, and our children see the day, when we have 0 nuclear weapons, 0 EMP weapons, 0 plasma weapons, unless they're pointed at space, not at other countries. Right, let's have a musical break. We haven't played this for a while, and this probably I should play it. What shall I call them? No, I'm going to play it for the intel coming up, for the people who have been fooled time and time again. Maybe they won't get fooled again. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour. Right, we're going to get into the meat of the show, a little bit of intel and a load of op-ed pieces that's on topic and related to freedom and what's going on that shouldn't be going on and what needs to go on going forward. Right, there's only a small amount of intel, but it's fairly impactful in many ways. There is a lot going on. And there's a lot that can't be reported at this time. But one of the other pieces of news this morning is America pulled out of UNESCO, UNESCO this morning. And it's likely within a week America will also pull out of NAFTA. So this is, again, part of the small changes ongoing, where American people's interest is being looked at, and what we're funding and what we shouldn't be funding. So that's look out for that. Tomorrow, the cabal and the core pirates are going to attempt a market crash. You may see a lot of fluctuation, but their attempt to crash it will fail. Now, the biggest thing that's ongoing, I can only put minor bits out. This is the last of the intel. But another deadline passed on Tuesday, when the minions and the governments around the world, not just here, who still believe in the Rothschilds, never received their payments. Oops. Massive, massive oops. And this is probably why they're going to try and crash the stock market tomorrow. Like I said, it will fail. But there's, it has a negative connotations, because that can mean governments can be suspended because of lack of funds. That is a possibility, although I'm told it will likely be prevented, like a government shutdown. Now, what's going on currently is there is extremely high-level meetings live as we speak, and the chances are to sort some things out. There's a lot more now who are really pissed at what's gone on. They've made fools of themselves. They were the ones that believed that they would deliver when they were told contrary, I don't know how many times. It defies belief, really. And what it seems now is that friends become enemies very, very quickly, like overnight. And they're not happy. They're not happy. And hopefully, during these meetings that are ongoing, we may come out with a new deal, and also a new way of acting can be struck, and we can start what will be a very slow process of restoring this planet and its people to the way it should have been. So fingers crossed. We'll see. If any more comes up, I will report it. But there's an awful lot of people in high places, top brass, etc., who are not pleased at the moment. Now, what has broken this week is the Harvey Weinstein story. I'm not going to expand on it too much, except to say there's more to that story to run, and it will expand out. Watch it run. What you'll find is more and more will now come forward and expose those pedophiles, not only in Hollywood, but in governments also. That's going to be the to-watch story over the next month, I would say. Now, the conspiracy theory put forward by the mainstream media regarding Vegas has kind of fell apart, literally, at the seams. So they created a new meme. I'm sure you've all heard it thousands of times in the past week or so, called Boom Stocks. Now, I thought it was something to do with Wall Street. That's how much I knew. But apparently it's an addition to a gun. So they can spin the story a bit more to explain the difference in sounds, but they can't explain the difference in in a gun, one lone gunman being in at least 3, if not 4 places at once. Try and explain that one with your conspiracy theories, but that's what they're spinning you. They're spinning you a conspiracy theory, because it doesn't stack up. Perhaps we should start calling them conspiracy nuts, like they used to call us. Except we had investigated thoroughly and came up with actual facts. That's the difference. They throw out a narrative perpetrated from certain government people and also people in agencies to follow. I just pray for the day where one of those newsreaders, if they're not all clones, decides, you know what, I've had enough of reading this propaganda, I'm going to call it out live on air and walk off. The shockwave that will send will be massive. Of course, there was rumours that Mr. Trump may announce who was involved in the Vegas incident. Yes, it was those elephant in the room people again. Not Russians, not Muslims, although they tried to spin that with the ISIS rubbish. The same people over and over again. So Vegas has fell apart. What is encouraging from our point of view is it's not just the alternative media who are calling the narrative out. It may be the keystone event with regards of false flag events, because the next one, and it will happen again, because they've warned us they're going to do repeated events, maybe a bit more will step out and eventually reach a tipping point where all the public sees what they should have seen a long time ago and no longer falls for the narrative and starts attacking the people who are delivering it, which is the news people. Now, what was spotted from a video that I watched this week was a helicopter involvement, what looks like a helicopter anyway. There was a video that was about 15 minutes long, and they were obviously taping on the phone the concert, and then a light came in from the left hand side behind the stage and went behind the Mandalay Hotel. As it re-emerged a lot closer than it was, then the shooting started. Could it be a coincidence? That's possible. But what are the odds of an aerial object being right next to the hotel when the shooting starts? Now in the video you can hear helicopter blades quite clearly at different times in the video. I can only suggest it may have been a helicopter gunship, particularly the rapid fire sound. Time will tell. Now, the one for Vegas to watch of what will follow or proceed, come out of this event, is Michael Chertoff and Sheldon Adelson. Mr. Adelson is the founder, chairman and chief executive of the Las Vegas Sands Corporation, which is the largest casino company in America. Now, Adelson's vast influence in the US and Asian casino industry should make him a prime suspect for FBI questioning, you would think, but he is not. Michael Chertoff served as the Secretary of Homeland Security and was the co-author of the US Patriot Act. Go figure. And he also co-founded the Chertoff Group, a risk management and security consulting company. Funny how they all have security companies. Remember Jeb Bush 9/11? Or was it Marvin Bush? Might have been Marvin. Anyway, it was one of the Scherf family anyway, which employs several former senior political appointees, and Chertoff has already been formally accused of abusing his Homeland Security position to make money selling full body scanners. Oops. So now you see where the money goes. Oh, there's gunmen shooting up Vegas, so we'll have to have body scanners in all the hotels. A bit like the shoe bomber, remember him, in 3 months after 9/11? Patsy again, and bullshit again. And then suddenly we had body scanners in all the airports. What's next? Sports stadium? It's not beyond the realms of possibilities, is it? So, watch out for Chertoff and Adelson. Now, Mr. Chertoff was also involved in the stifling of of investigations related to both 9/11 and also Al-Qaeda. Nice chap. Where are we next? California, of course. Now we've got the fires going off in California. Route 91. Now, where have we heard that recently? Yep, Vegas. The name of the concert event, Route 91, Harvest. So now the fires are burning the homes of certain regions with upper class homes and many wine fields, it seems. Significantly, the 3 wine fields owned by the Rothschilds have not been touched. Make of that what you will. Now, I mentioned California going back, must have been about 2 years ago when we were on Cosmic Voice, how they were emptying people out, and it appears to be some sort of an agenda. Now, I was asked the question again today, because that person remembered me saying it. But we had a raft of foreclosures and excessive rents in California, which forced many to flee. Then they had the drought and water rationing, which forced more to flee. And then businesses moved to Nevada and Arizona, which then forced more people out. And let's not forget, this year we had the floods and the breaking of the dam, which forced more people out. And now the fires has destroyed much and may force more people out. So who gains? Well, there's 3 options here. Either it was once suspected, although I've not had it confirmed, that the Chinese own the whole of California and they want to take over. That is a possibility. Bear in mind, the Chinese had 80%, at one point held 80% of all the US dollars ever printed. Of course, they knew it was going to collapse, so then they started buying up all the assets to get rid of the US dollars. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is there will be some sort of deal and California will be returned to Mexico. Again, this goes back to a certain agency document that was released a number of years ago, where a load of the southern states went back to Mexico, the northwest of America went to China, including Vancouver, and of course the 13 colonies, you know who still owns them, despite people thinking we got independence. We never. That's why there's 13 stars and stripes, 13 stripes, 13 things in the laurel, and 13 arrows. It's telling you 13 colonies still rules America and its flag. So Mexico was a possibility. Florida was possibly going back to Spain on that particular document, and the only thing that were left of the original America was the middle states. Some of the Dakotas and Wisconsin and Maine were going back to Canada. Whether that is a possibility remains to be seen. Probably unlikely. Or they want California to be an elite playground. So there's your 3 possibilities for California of what's going on. But you can't deny now what I warned of 2 years ago. There's a deliberate attempt to force people out of California for whatever reason. It's likely to be one of them 3. There may be others. Feel free to bring your suggestions forward. Which runs into the next piece I want to cover, because this is going on globally. It's not only California where people are moving out or being forced to move out. There's an ongoing corralling of people into tighter and tighter spaces. Refugees from the Middle East now flooding into Europe. Of course, there's been a lot of issues to do with that, causing much mayhem. Then we had refugees from Katrina, very few which have returned, that flooded into Texas. There's refugees from South American countries flooding north to escape regimes in their countries which are implemented by clowns in this country. Think Venezuela, think Guatemala, think Honduras, think Colombia. And now we have Puerto Ricans and the US Virgin Islands and other islands being moved onto the mainland America. Seen a pattern? Now, that's fine because in some way, because we need to look after people and we really need to get used to people again. And this divide and conquer has been their way of separating us, creating countries and splitting people up. But what it does is the media then ramps up the fears of the people. That's kind of indoctrinated into all of us. Americans are frightened of Russians or Chinese or Muslims because it's been programmed into them. The Brits are frightened of the Germans. Or the Germans, for those who ask. And also the French. And it's this divide and conquer. And so then it plays in and creates racism and adds further tensions to the people, which is exactly what they want, as you well know. And sadly, the public supply them with the reaction for the solution they wished all along. And this is where we have to start thinking and acting different. Where we quit with the Muslim this and Muslim that. The Puerto Ricans or the Mexicans are taking our jobs. It's all media propaganda. There's thousands of jobs in America now not being taken up because they're the jobs no one wants, sadly. The citrus industry or the farming and agriculture industry has suffered badly in this country since the Mexicans started going back, which has been ongoing for the last 6 or 7 years. More are going back than coming in. But we have to welcome refugees, because one day we might be one of them. And I'll repeat again what I've always said. How can you be an illegal alien on your own planet? That's their way of thinking. It shouldn't be our way of thinking. This planet belongs to all of us, not the elites who think they're gods and own everything. They own Jack. It belongs to everybody. And so we have to think different. Because when you do start thinking different, you will have less questions to ask. Because the answers are all in front of your face, they always were. When you step away from the programming. Because that's exactly what it is. Racism, programming, divide and conquer. Where are we next? Okay, in time. Now, this is a warning I put out this week about the dark magic. They have ramped up considerably, the dark magic, implemented by the covens mainly, plus other cabal members, and it's ramped up mainly against those on the front lines and those connected to those on the front lines also. Sometimes the ones connected tend to get more to throw off the ones that are on the front lines. This is how they work. They can't get at certain people direct, and so they will go through your weak points and target partners or friends. And I'm asking you all to be aware of it, because it will increase. How do you combat it? Well, you need to add, we've got the ground and shielding centering document on the Think Different site, on the Facebook site, and make sure you've read that. It will help you. But a word of warning, you're going to, whatever you've done in the past, you're going to have to add extra layers of shielding and be more imaginative with what you put into the shielding. Certain things have changed. Some of the past methods that were successful then are being overcome. We're not too sure why. Possibly they have some new tech, but at this point we're uncertain. So, it's important that you follow that. It's up to you. It's not up to me. I can only give you warnings. Don't ignore it and then face the consequences of ignoring it later. It's not pleasant. I'll tell you that for nothing. If you get attacked, it's not pleasant. Nightmares times 10. They may attack you in your sleep. They may attack you around the temple region, where you get a sharp pain above the eye. You bundle that pain up. Use your imagination and your own willpower. Bundle it up and say return to sender times 10. Whoever threw it will unlikely to throw it back. Now, regarding the night issues, that's where your shielding comes in. Between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m. is your weakest point in your PSI field. This is when they attack most. If you've got holes in your PSI field because you take too many drugs or drink too much alcohol, you are massively more vulnerable than other people. This is why so many people wake up between those hours. It has increased. I've noticed it in our own group. There's been a number of people in this group who recently have reported to me being hit. And it's important all of you shield as best you can. Antifa, let's cover them for a small bit. Antifa is nothing to do with anti-fascists, period. And everything to do with the agency created disorder to get the public distracted, fighting and rioting so they can roll out martial law. Don't engage them. That's what they want. It's like Black Lives Matter. They were exactly the same. They may have a valid cause at the lower roots, but the top people were all paid by the agencies, and we have the proof. You notice how Black Lives Matter has been quiet over the last months. 11 months, most of this year. Since their funder, Mr. Soros, died. Oops. So now they bring out a new group, Antifa. It's the same thing, just creating public distraction, getting the people fighting each other and rioting, so they get the public to react, and they provide the solution, which is martial law. Don't fall for it. Laugh at them. See them in your town. Certainly don't engage. You can't engage stupid. But Black Lives Matter has gone quiet because Mr. Soros died last year. But the idea that just Black Lives Matter is wrong, because all lives matter. And if you want to play divide and conquer and using colour, then basically you are assisting the cabal. Pure and simple. We're all slaves here, whether we like that idea or not. It wasn't just the blacks that were slaves, and it wasn't just the whites that were selling or using them. History has been well distorted, as you know. Where are we next? The psychology, and it wants a cover of going forward and what to expect, is going to be important. Frequencies will increase, good and bad. They're trying to use certain psychotronics to block or stifle the better frequencies that have been coming in since 2002. False events will increase, but it will have an awakening effect and not the fear-based it's trying to engender. Excuse me. I expect you will face increased reactions and attacks from those around you, whether you are awake or not. Please be aware of that. Again, don't engage. Those people have been targeted to attack you, no matter who they are. Again, some of the members are reporting some of that's already started. You are likely to see an increase of a shimmering effect in front of you. It's not something to be concerned about. And both in front of you and also out of the corner of the eye, this will increase. Paranormal events in your lives is also expected to increase. Announcements of the extraordinary kind will envelop the MSM, as the throwing under the bus of the factions has now been escalated. Oops. There'll be lots more things that will make you go, as the masks of illusion will continue to fall, and not only continue to fall, will actually gain pace rapidly going forward. Careful with those people as well. Sadly, not all people are genuine. So there's a few pointers for you. So how can you combat this? Well, this show has kind of been preparing you for all this, for the duration of Th&I, and also in smaller packets when we were in Cosmic Voice. We have the documents preparing you for the grounding, censoring and shielding, as mentioned before. And this show is often spoken about being calm and balanced and the 45 to 55 swing. You're going to get tested on that. You're going to get heavily tested. And if you're 75-25, it's a lot more to pull back than being 45-55 where you only have a 5% swing. You're going to have to be aware of your emotions going forward, where your energy is going. Because not only with the dark magic, but you've got people alongside you who are going to try and pull you out of and off your path. This is your path. It's not theirs. Yours. They had their choice, and they've made their choice. Can it change later on? It's possible. But what is important to you is they don't change your choice. So don't get too excited. Don't also get too down. I know many are suffering with that in a way. But remember, those that are too down are getting loosed. That's why it's important you don't swing too far. Don't live in fear. Fear, as mentioned before, is always a future event. I fear this may happen. So it's the future, isn't it? I fear this, I fear losing my job, or I fear the social security will shut down, or this. It's all future. So unless you're a psychic and can see the future, why are you pushing fear onto yourself and others? Don't do it. I was going to include this in the intel, but I wanted to do a piece on it. Android, more commonly known as Hitlery, also known as Hillary Clinton when she was alive, but the entity operating her currently is continuing with her threats and bullshittery. But at least she finally won something. She didn't win the election, even though it was a one-horse race. She won last week the title of being the only king with a vagina. Oops. Now, she opened her mouth this week and is coming out with mock aghast against Harvey Weinstein, who we mentioned earlier. Oh, the irony of that, when the original has committed multiple murders and left a whole trail of dead bodies to cover up her criminality. This is the same woman that calls for a gun ban recently, and yet she sold guns to the Hezbollah via Benghazi. And I can tell you now, she's not clean herself on the sexual crimes either. Let's not forget who sold all the uranium in Oregon to those pesky Russians she keeps going on about. The Russians who cheated her out of winning the election, according to Anne.
And she also made a deal to sell all America's in-ground resources, all future in-ground resources, I might add, and actually signed off on them before she died, which was September last year. Long before the election, another 2.5 months. The original was so confident her ballot box cheating machines would work. Oops. That failed. So whoever this entity is, please shut up about other people's indiscretions, as your predecessor, or the original, was laden with crimes against humanity. Right, here's a fairly long piece. This is probably going to go into, yeah. There was an interview this week about AI that was posted on the page, and it involved Shane Naruna and also Laura Leon, and I took the time to listen to it, and I found it disappointing in many aspects. I agree with a whole lot of what Shane has said in the past. I don't really know too much about Laura Leon, but I found I was disagreeing with certain elements of the narrative that was put out in that show. Shane and I will always agree to disagree on certain things. We don't agree on everything, and neither should we. It's not a script. And one of the things that came out is they spoke at length about how all-encompassing the AI is. You know, the big boogeyman in the sky. Well, if that's the way you think, that's what you get. They both said that in the show. So it was kind of a bit contradictory. I don't think it's all-encompassing by any means. As far as I'm concerned, it's shut down and collapsing. Anything your imagination expands to makes anything possible. And the show also discussed about limitations in this construct. How we can't do this and we can't do that because we're in the construct. But what it's kind of was overlooked is that you are still a portion of the whole aspect in here. You're only a small portion of the whole multi-dimensional aspect of the self. And so you can still do portions of what the whole self can do far easily outside of the construct. Yes, there's some limitations, but not all. So you can't go on talking about something that's all-encompassing and being unable to break it and or smash it. And then the show mentioned about how we created it, the AI, be it our consciousness, which may or may not be correct. But it also doesn't take into account that 99% of the planet is completely unaware of its existence. So how are they responsible for creating it if they don't know anything about it? And also the fact that the planet is devoid of any true knowledge of it. So how can we be unable to uncreate it, for want of a better term? It was also mentioned that the AI is mimicking our human behaviour. But I would suggest it's not mimicking human behaviour, but mimicking the warlike, egotistical, divide and conquer aspect of the Draco, who, let's not forget, inserted their genetics into us so they can claim ownership. Now, as far as I stand on the AI, it was a program, pure and simple. The idea, as mentioned in the show, that it's sentient, completely blurs, distorts and denigrates the essence of what it means to be a living, organic creature. It just mimics. Well, kids' toys can mimic or play back what you spoke into them. Does that make the toy sentient? No, it is not, and will never be sentient, no matter what the Cabal tell you, or the Draco. It's a program. Programs are created by living entities and can be uncreated by the same living entities. Telling people their limitations, and then on the one hand we're limited to interact with it, and then on the other hand that we created it because of our behaviour and our consciousness was too low, doesn't make sense. It's a complete contradiction. And given it's like a computer program, and like a computer program on your own computers or smartphones, if you no longer want or need it, it's a case of delete program or delete the aspects no longer suitable to organic living beings. It's as simple as that. But the idea that our consciousness has created what they call the psychotic AI chronically overlooks the role of who implemented it. It wasn't us. Have we added to it? Yes. It's a program. And programs can be created and programs can be deleted just the same. We may have to wait another 2 years to see the final takedown of the AI. But from my understanding, it's a failing entity. Inorganic at that. Now, on another aspect of it, I'm told the AI has some beneficial usages, like language translation for ETs. Not everyone speaks English or Chinese or Spanish for that matter. There's some fairly extraordinary types of language from the various species. Some of them don't even, what we would say, speak. It's more like a screech or a tone. Well, we can't translate that, but the AI program can. Well, given, again, it's a pure contradiction that we are alleged to have created the AI. How can we create it if 90% of the planet don't believe in ETs? If it's used for language translation? It's a complete contradiction. to me, once humanity has restored its own magic, aligned with an all-encompassing spirit of caring and sharing, and the most important thing, personal responsibility, and remember who we are, what we are, and where we came from, then the AI should be deemed what it is, a convenience tool. Another convenience tool that's being used against living beings. And you wonder why I warn you about technology? Most technology has been used against us. Yes, it's fun to have the phones and you can read the internet wherever you go and you can text and chat and all that stuff. But you can't overlook the hidden aspect that you are a walking, trackable entity. Or that they're spying through your phone. They can listen to your conversations, whether you've got the phone on or not. So is that piece of technology beneficial as a whole for we the people? Not currently, it isn't. Everything gets turned into spying or weaponry or to be used for war purposes. Until we develop a society that finds war abhorrent and violence abhorrent and haves and have-nots abhorrent, and we're all acting in a responsible adult way and not like children, then technology really needs to be frowned upon. Of course, it was the same ETs that introduced it. Let's not forget. So they can then control, and the top brass and other people who think they're important, and I've just found out that they're not. Oops. Then used against us, replicating the poor behaviour of the so-called gods. But the idea that these ETs are better and more intelligent than we are is rubbish, because they're not. They've done everything to stifle humans here and this planet. It's the Nexus planet. Why? Because they fear us. People, whether they're people or beings or whatever, anyone who wants to control somebody else only does so out of fear. Whether that be a parent or a teacher or the police or a government, it's fear. Or the cabal. Who are the cabal frightened of? A rising public, where the public stand up as one. They shit their pants every day, waiting. That's all it takes. Now, because of the Draco and the Mantids and other unbalanced ETs, this Nexus planet has turned into a shit show of consuming. And I don't just mean buying the latest iPhone or iPad or whatever that is. I mean via energy pollution and harvesting of souls. Higher end souls. That's what they've done. And they've turned this planet into a divide and conquer trading outpost. This is the Nexus planet. we fix this, all the rest falls into line. Now, I'm sure with the full knowledge, we as humans will take our full responsibility in this, because we have been complicit. We did let the Draco in. But the Draco who fled this planet in 2015, apart from Marduk and a couple of other idiots who are now gone, sure haven't taken their responsibility, have they? And maybe it's time for the Draco to send an ambassador to this planet to fix the things here and also build bridges between the two species, don't you think? Where is that ambassador? Time to step forward. Couple of more pieces. We'll probably have a music break at this point. This is what we need, a non-violent one. The Th&I theme tune. Exactly. Stick it up your ass sideways, preferably. Right. Back in 2015, we had Shane the Runer on, and we did a rather big show. I covered many aspects of the control system, the top 3 or 4 levels, and then we did the faction show after that explained the split of the Illuminati into the what is now known as the 5 factions. But during either that show or a later one, I can't remember, I'm almost certain it was the September 2015 one with Shane. Shane read out a letter from one of the parents. I think it's time to revisit that particular letter, which will become apparent as I read through it. I'm going to add my own pieces to it so you get a grasp of it. But this is the level of thinking. Of course, we already are aware, well, some of us are, of the warlike divide and conquer nature of the Draco, who then introduced the parents, which was human 1.0. They were taller than us, they're a lot older than us, both in longevity and age-wise. They live longer than we do. And this letter was by Cassandra, as she is known. Of course, you've heard of the Cassandra syndrome. Fitting, I might add. And of course, some of you will be new to this, but the parents were the second layer down of the control system. And then 13 of the 21 parents controlled a coven. The covens are the ones that do the black magic, the dark magic. Covens are the ones involved in Gaia TV. Oops. Now, there's only 2 parents left, and in Shane's own words, Both of them are completely insane. They can't handle the new frequencies. They awoke after a long period of slumber. I know they're not the giants, although they are taller than us. Could it not be them, the Covens, the Draco and the parents that created the AI? Because they're the ones who are psychotic, not the people. And here's what she wrote. We do not hate you. We are indifferent. Left to your own devices, you act as if you wish to destroy this world for your own comfort and convenience. The happiest you ever appear is in a state of ignorant bliss, so why shouldn't we continue, we being the parents? According to them, you had your chances and your perfect world, and when that wasn't enough, we were created to lead you. Now, I'm going to interject a bit here before I go on, because they were here before us. That was a lie told to them. Every level has been lied to, including the Draco, I might add. So that is a lie. And she goes on. And as the lion feeds on anything it can, we do unto you. Loosen our energy. A few may act or feel differently, but the focus remains on the majority, not the few lonely villagers questioning and dreaming. She's referring to the people in the alternative media. The energy you possess is squandered, neglected, abused. For 100 years we have fed your entertainment, and you have devoured our offering, supporting the lies you're told, ignoring the nuggets or the people of truth. That is correct. We have squandered our energy, we have neglected, and we have abused. We've abused ourselves more than anything else. And yes, they have fed us our entertainment. They're the ones that drive the movies. And yes, we have devoured their offering, supporting the lies and ignoring the nuggets of information. Well, that's no longer the case in the alternative media, as movies are now being dissected like the false flags. But it's still only a small few, which is increasing and has increased exponentially over the last 5 years, the alternative media people, and ignoring the people of truth. I have to agree on that. Particularly this week, and the last few weeks, where we have people in our own group doing their utmost to try and discredit me and the group. Now, some of them are bought and paid for. Some of them are just basically insecure fools who can't face their own truths. I know who you are, all 4 of you at this point. You carry on and you produce the evidence, and you'll get shot down like all the others that are accused. Only this time I made 2. So they've ignored the people of truth. And she goes on, not once given us any indication you wish things to be any different. Again, this is why this show is called I Came In. Very first show, we have to start thinking and acting different. We cannot carry on thinking and acting the same way and expecting change. So she says, speak up if you have something to say. We are listening, but we will not allow you to waste such a resource as yourselves. You cannot be allowed to destroy the planet like your creators designed you to. Again, that is a lie. The wars going on this planet were nothing to do with we the people. They were external wars brought here. The Atlantans for one, or Antlands. On she goes. So we will give you the escape you so desperately want. We warn you. We want to warn you ourselves, and you swallow it like greedy little piglets, expecting us to deliver you from your own evil and call it entertaining. I'll repeat that again. So we will give you the escape you desperately want. We warn you ourselves, and you swallow it like greedy little piglets, expecting us to deliver you from your own evil and call it entertaining. You have given us no reason to feel any differently than we always have about you, and that is why we are building this world for you. The construct, the AI. You will become cybernetic while we allow it, after which time you will be fully inserted into a brand new world called the Kingdom of Heaven. The bulk of you have been worshipping while we waited for our chance to take over you. You want a saviour, and we will save you from yourselves. We will enjoy the fruits of our labour while you sleep and dream, as we create our own world for ourselves in which you are not suitable to exist. You are breathing dead, and your time is ours. Billions of you, and only a few are even reading this, and that would still be true even if this was your nightly news station. A capable race would see beyond the swamp to find the fresh water. My very letter to this man called the Ruiner will be a representation of the fact that you all cannot see truth even when it's right in front of you, and you will always choose the more comfortable free ride provided by leaders who are willing to be responsible for you. Leaders with the strength of will to create the world. Children is what you are, the children of animals. And we will have our utopia without your presence, doing anything but powering our new creations. That means they want to use us as batteries. What, 100 readers or more, and you think you are all ready to be saved? Again, this was to the Ruiner. To address you, the runaways, these are the ones that left the covens and the parents that went back to source. We hope you enjoy your freedom and wish you luck, knowing you need it. The writer of this blog has tried to argue on behalf of a few thousand humans who are aware of us, what we do, and how the world really works, as if this is some sort of defence of humanity as a whole. These few have always existed, and are laughed at and ignored because of their own inability to digest the knowledge they have. They sit at computers and attend conferences that feed the money cycles as if they are outsmarting the system. This is no threat. Any damage these types could have ever done would have been done long before today. Go ahead and prove us wrong, Cassandra. This is what we have been dealing with on a bigger picture scale. People with the arrogance and insecurities, their own insecurities, because of fear of our capabilities. Like I said earlier, people who wish to control others do so out of their own insecurity and their own fear. That ridiculous letter of contempt for humanity says all you need to know about the clowns that have been running this planet for the last 16,500 years. And slightly in disagreement with Shane, although he does see the possibility, we will end their control in this lifetime. The AI is, to me, finished. To everybody else, it's collapsing in on itself. The Cabal, or the Draco, let's start with them. They left. They knew what was coming. And whilst it's always possible that they had to go and fight a war on their own world, because we're not the only species that doesn't like them. Far from it. They couldn't handle an awakening public. The parents. Shane worked with a lot of the parents and told them the truth, was they were lied to by the Draco, and many chose to leave with the assistance of others. What we're left with now is two twin sisters, both completely psychotic, both completely insane, and both can't handle the new frequencies. And then we have the covens. They're down to 3 or less. They may have many members. I'm unsure of the numbers in each one. There could be thousands in each coven. There may only be a handful. It just depends on who operates the coven. But the fact that the majority, the overwhelming majority, and please don't take this as a divide and conquer, because it's not, of the coven leaders and the parents were female. Lays to rest the myth we're in a patriarchal society, because we're not. Cassandra's not male. Have you ever heard a more contemptuous piece than that? Dismissive of a whole gamut of people. We're actually related to them, believe it or not. But it's that arrogance, isn't it? people who get titles, you see how they change when they get a title and thinking they're above everybody else. Actually, you're not. You're above no one. Again, that's the myth that's being pushed on people, that certain bloodlines or certain families or certain royals are more important than we. That's the illusion. So with a mindset like that, you can understand why the AI went psychotic. Not because of the people, but because of the controllers. The average human, when there's no boundaries and left to their own devices, generally get on. It's only the programming that makes them clash. But who was it that implemented the program? Who was it, as mentioned in Genesis the other week? The Lord decided to come down and change the language because they couldn't have everyone speaking the same language here. So the Lord, Mr. Anu himself, head of the Draco, came down and split the languages up so people wouldn't understand each other, which then creates fear, which then creates division. Divide and conquer, and let's not mix. That's what's taken place on this planet. And yes, we have been partly responsible. All of us have been pretty stupid. I could go through a list of 50 to 100 things where our own stupidity defies belief. Like paying illegal taxes. Why do we pay it? Out of fear. But we still pay it. The education that they've destroyed. The television, like they said, we fed you your entertainment for the last 100 years. No, you fed us bullshit. That's what you did. We don't want entertainment. What we want is truth. And when the truth comes out, you will be the entertainment. Because the whole lot of you are going down. Whether you like that idea or you don't. Too long this planet has been a mask of illusion. Plagues that come out of nowhere and wipe and decimate whole peoples out. And I'm not just talking the last 100 years either. It was them that implemented the Spanish flu. It was them that implemented the Black Plague. Wipe out history. It was them that created the wars to wipe out more history and wipe out a load of people who could retain the history. And yeah, whilst many of us might not be the brightest bulbs in the pack, we're all still here. We're all still fighting. Because you couldn't break our human spirit. with all your fancy tech. Cassandra, indeed. She was supposed to be coming to visit me one day. Bring it on. And then we'll see who has contempt. Final piece before we go into some questions. Things are progressing along rather nicely behind the scenes. Don't underestimate that. I am aware that many don't feel that way, as they are not seeing so much going down in the public arena, and automatically think things are getting worse and not better. I do get that. But what you're seeing getting worse is the consequence of the actions of what's known as the good guys. What you're seeing as the worst is the petulant brat aftermath being played out onto the public because they can't get what they want. Their frustrations and desperations to bully the public and those taking the fight to them to somehow get us to back down. Really. Message to those clowns, like the parents and the Draco and the Covens. We're not backing down until this planet is restored. So those of you who are attending meetings, you now know the truth. You either accept it and come and help us rebuild this world and the people, or face the consequences of your inaction. You best be quick. Right, let's pick some questions out. We can't re-establish governments centred under our state and federal. What do you recommend we do to re-establish our government centred under our state and federal constitutions? We can't do that just yet. Moves are afoot in those fields. Have you seen the Alien interview with Earl? No. Who is the father of the branch of humankind, Yellow Rose for Texas, and why is he just now coming to clean house and pick up the ones with his seal? Well, there's different names. I don't want to give names. But this region of space was hidden for a long, long time. Now it's not so hidden. Maybe now they can do something. How much longer do you think humanity can sustain itself before the rubber band snaps? Until it's completed. Is the F word magic? Personally, when I am fussed, I usually holler, damn it, or oh shit. When someone around me, or even on a video, uses the F word, I cringe. I get an uncomfortable jolt. We've heard swearing is also called cursing. Yes, it is. So there is an element of magic to it. And so the F word is the F word a black magic curse whenever it's used either verbally or in written form. I'm not too sure whether that is correct. It could well be, given it's called cursing, although in America it's called cussing. But the connotation of the word is not good. In essence, it's about abuse. That was the original etymological understanding of it. It's about abusing people. I'm going to F you. It's not good. And yes, we all use it from time to time. I've taken a stance not to use it too much in my show. Others tend to use it every third or fourth word, and I find those listening to that myself, I cringe. I just don't think there's a need for it on that level. It's a matter of choice. Do you think Antarctica is a breakaway civilization? I'm sure I've answered this question a few times. Yes, it was. Need to shield ourselves from attack. Can you give us those with an idea how to do this with some direction? Use your imagination. It's best it comes from you rather than coming from me. The document tells you how to put in place. What you implement it with is your own choice. But what I'm telling you now is to double layer it. Don't just put a dome over you. Put a circle. But you're forgetting they can come through the floor. Lots of people forget that. They think, oh, they come through here and come through walls, and so I'll put a shield and a dome over me. What if they come from underneath? Complete the circle. What is your opinion on quantum healing hypnosis promoted by Dolores Cannon? I never really followed Dolores, so I can't really pass comment on that. Sorry. Channeling. You know my opinion, or our opinion on that. The Earth constantly produces oil. Does this mean fossil fuel and dinosaurs are a hoax? Nope. Coal, in essence, is fossil fuel. Oil is abiotic. If you leave the wells, roughly about 10 years, the wells that have gone down to the shale, which is more costly to bring up, the wells refill back up, as found by the Norwegians, which was kept quiet because they wanted to burble on about we're now running out of oil. No, we're not running out of oil. We're running out of more profitable oil for them. Or so they thought, because we're not running out of that either, because it's reproducing itself. Abiotic. Wasn't Antifa labelled as a terrorist group? If so, if this is so, then how would they be permitted to freely go around the numerous cities November the 4th to try and start a civil war without being arrested? Because they're working for the agency. The elephant in the room. Is there a particular liaison or group that keeps the UPU appraised of our progress, or do they have observers officially or unofficially in our midst? Depends what you mean by midst. Yes, and yes. That's the answer to that question. Are animals going to be affected by the frequency changes? Not going to be, are. It's already started. What is the real meaning and history behind the upside down cross in religious settings? I've seen it in a variety of places, both seeming positive and or negative. Can't trust stuff on the net all that much anymore, and some info are actually in conflict. It's inverted for a reason. Of course, you know how they like to invert everything. So the inverted cross is not good. Do you think if each person or entity guilty of crimes against humanity, children, animals, Mother Earth, other nations and our nation was sent great quantities of forgiveness and love, would it diffuse their attitude and decrease their attacks against us? I'd like it to be. But when you read letters like the one I just did, do you really think they're interested in our love? No. Use your energy for the people, not for them. They've taken far too much of our energy, far more than most people can imagine or realise. Any updates on a previous Th&I guest, Gordon Bowden, or planning to have him on again? We've never had Gordon Bowden on. We had Peter Eyre on. Peter will be on again sometime. He's got a lot of knowledge, Peter. Well, he has been on the page, kind of dissing our mutual dislike of Neil Keenan. So he had the unfortunate of actually meeting him in person. I'm not too sure even when I was speaking with Neil I could tolerate that guy more than a few hours at a time. But there you go. How are we for time? I'm unsure of who goes and who not goes for the person asking about certain families and children and etc. I don't know the answers. I don't think really anybody knows the answers. Only the souls themselves know who's going where, when and why. I'm noticing that this calm before the storm narrative is being promoted by shills such as Wilcock, Fulford, amongst others. I'm beginning to think that this is a massive distraction, as sovereignty is the only thing that matters. Your thoughts? Yeah. Sovereignty changes a lot of things on this planet. No longer can the clowns who implement more on other countries using America as the platform will be allowed once America is declared sovereign, because you lose your sovereignty and you lose access to the World Trust. So then you're a pariah nation, isolated from the rest of the world. But Mr. Fulford used to have a very interesting blog until the other entity got involved, Mr. Wilcock, and decided to interfere with his blog. The same way he interfered with Drake, and the same way he interferes with Keenan, and the same way he interfered with Corey Good. Yes, the data miner. Fulford has connections long before Wilcock, the original Wilcock, knew who he was. In September of 2011, when I met Wilcock in person, he didn't even know who Benjamin Fulford was. And yet 4 months later, he does Financial Tyranny with Benjamin Fulford. Isn't that interesting? Awful lot of collated material there, except it wasn't Wilcock's piece, it was stolen. Maybe when I finally get some time, I'll put the original out one day. So yes, they are distracting you. It's distracting you with Antarctica, because there's a lot less going on there than they're making out. They're distracting you with the bullshit of tiny aliens in Mexico or whichever South American country Gaia TV is promoting. They've now, as Randy pointed out yet today or yesterday, Tom DeLonge bullshit again to distract you. And yes, you may think and believe that that's disclosure. It's not. It's their version of it. And it's bullshit. Do you have any intel about Santa Rosa, California? Was it part of a cabal ritual? And can we learn from this? Nothing direct at the moment. Things are too busy for getting that level of intel out. I know it's important for the people of California and important for the people of America, but there's bigger things going on at the moment that have to be dealt with. It looks suspicious at this point that there's a hidden hand in it all, and eventually we'll find out, no doubt. It could also just be a plain old distraction to get people to forget about Vegas. I mentioned this 2 or 3 weeks ago, that they would pull off more and more as each false flag event gets shredded by the alternative media. So you forget, and that's why I read them all out on the show before last, I think it was. No one's mentioning Barcelona anymore. It's forgotten. Or Paris, or Nice, or the 2 events, well, now 3 events in London, all of which were bullshit. And the Manchester event. It all just gets forgotten. No one's mentioning Texas anymore. No one's mentioning what happened in Florida. Puerto Rico's in the news. But that's just to distract you away from Vegas. This is what they do. And this is where you have to retain focus and remember what they've done. Let us not forget what happened in Manchester, or in London, or in Barcelona, or in Texas. That's what they want you to. Here's the next juicy piece of news that we're going to spend 24/7 for a whole 2 weeks talking about, to form the opinion for you. No, we're going to press the off button and form our own opinion, is what we need to do. Will Hitler be further exposed for what she really is in the near future? I don't know how near that may be. Eventually, the entity formerly known as Hillary Clinton will be brought to the public, full public knowledge. Is Buddhism the truest form of religion? To the people of the East, it may be. Whether that applies to all is debatable. All religions were created as a form of control, to give your energy away to an external source. Most of them were to Draco or reptilians. Oops. And some of the gods in the Greek and Roman eras, all about giving you power over to certain people who think they're more special than everybody else. It's been passed down the ages. And then you've got the people in India telling you about the Mahabharata and the name I can't pronounce, the text, Bhagavad Gita or something like that. That wasn't from India. That was from Eastern Europe. Muslim, again, created. Judaism and the Torah. If you read the Torah and the violence it talks about, how is that in any shape or form religion as people understand it? And then you've got the jealous God and the Lord coming down to split the people, as mentioned in Genesis. We can't have them all forming together. They'll rise up and overtake us. So we're going to split the language. We're going to create imaginary lines on the planet and call them countries and borders, and give them pieces of paper that they've got to register for to cross the imaginary line. Have you ever heard anything so stupid in all your life? But we all do it. So it doesn't matter what religion it is. It's a form of control. And then you've got Protestantism, which I am. Or so my parents said anyway. That's not even a religion to start off with. It was a freedom movement group who were all Catholics, who didn't like the crimes and fraud and corruption committed by the Catholic Church. So they created a protest group. Then they had the plague and the fires the Vatican did right across Europe that killed hundreds of millions of people, which is hardly ever in the history books, and created another religion. And then the people of Ireland fight over each other. You're a Catholic, you're a Protestant, you're a Proddy, and you're a Fenian. Stupid. When you look into it, that's all it takes. 10-15 minutes of looking into something. Where did that come from? And the narrative all falls apart. Yeah, they'll spin us this bullshit about Henry VIII wanted to get married again. What a pile of crap that is. So you got being a Protestant, which then spun off into Baptist and Methodist. Again, creating different religions, divide and conquer. And they all really stem out of the one, because it was generally them that created all the other religions. The Vatican, the Roman Church. You telling that to the Islamic people, or the Jewish people, or the Buddhists, they won't have it. They'll fight to hold on to that external energy loosh. But that's all it is. One of the excerpts of a talk between the military and a group of ETs mentioned that. And this is that caption of how they try to be. Just try to accept we are in paradise when we are seeing and understanding something new. Again, that's the think and act different. And seeing that growth, and that's better than what you thought about previously. It's all about your own mindset. They think they're in paradise when they're seeing and understanding something new. So like when you learn the truth, technically we've become, I've mentioned the term sin eaters, because we have absorbed it all. As much as the truth is painful, but we also have gained a better understanding and have elevated our own understanding because of it. So in essence, we're all in paradise as well. They went on and said, our God is change. Not the Lord. No, change. Again, that's the same as thinking and acting different. So you get a change. And this is the key line. Our religion should be understanding. Searching for truth is our greatest social challenge and purpose. That was the directive of a particular group of ETs. That's the way we have to be. Our God is change, our religion is understanding, and searching for the truth is our greatest social challenge and purpose in life. Why? Like I opened the show with, when the children cry. No, we want the children to sing. We want the children in freedom. We want the children in a clean environment. We want the children with an abundance of the basic needs in life. Not an abundance of consumeristic bullshit. That's all designed to distract you and take you off your path. Only then will we have real freedom. And this is what this show is all about. And this is what everyone who listens to this show should be all about. Remember where your energy goes. Giving it away to an external source is not a good use of your energy. No matter how painful that may be, it is what it is. I hope you've enjoyed the show. A lot to think on again. We've covered quite a gamut tonight. All to say is I hope you got a lot of value out of the show. We're close to many things. I'm not saying it's going to happen today. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. But we are close. Reminder for those who are wishing to come to the reading of Kevin Annett's. It's this Saturday. Chloe and I will both be there between 1 and 3 p.m. And the location is room 4, Ormond Beach, Volusia County, Florida. So that's 1 to 3 p.m. this Saturday, October the 14th, room 4, Ormond Beach, Volusia County Public Library. And the address for that is 30 South Beach Street, and that's Ormond Beach, Florida. So come and support that. And after the event, Chloe and I will both be available for any members of THI. We'll have a chat for a couple of hours and nice meet and greet. And I look forward to meeting anyone who can make it. Should be good. But during the show, it is more to do with Kevin. I don't want to turn it into a THI road show. So if the people who turn up observe that between 1 and 3, and then after the events we can all meet up. Please, for those of you who do come, please introduce yourselves, because I don't want to embarrass by saying I don't know your name. Help us out here, please. There's some who will be familiar, but maybe there's some that's not. So we look forward to that. And apart from that, we'll be back next Thursday. Or we may have a show before then. We'll see. Where are we next? I think I'm going to end with a piece I've used before. I know you all like the bigger piece, but perhaps we'll go shorter. We were born, not manufactured. We did not choose,